I'm Lucy from Bookaxe and I'm here today to review two recently released thrillers. I have kicked off this year with a definite thriller theme. The two books that I've read in the last couple of weeks were The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley and The Last by Hanna Jameson, which I have to say, by total accident, make a seriously handsome pair. Before I tell you what I thought of them, I would just like to say that if you are new to this channel, please do hit that subscribe button. We do all sorts of reviews across all sorts of genres, and we also have a weekly bookish chat programme, The Week in Books, where we talk about all things books. So it would be lovely to see you over there too. Right, first up, I'm going to talk about The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley, which is one of the most, well, do you know what? I was going to say one of the most hyped thrillers of the year, but it's only like the second week of February. But actually, it is one that the hype has been building for quite a few months. It's really shiny. Sorry if you're getting blinded. But Lucy Foley has written other books, but not thrillers. And this was her sort of move over. And it was like a big money signing for the publishers. So it was sort of pegged as being going to be a big success, really. And I think that it will be, although I kind of didn't love it. I didn't dislike it, but it probably wasn't really for me. So I'll tell you a little bit about why. First of all, it is about basically a New Year's Eve party gone horribly wrong. A bunch of friends, I think there's 9 of them maybe, go off to this secluded house in the Scottish Highlands. It is a wonderful, exciting setting. A blizzard sets in during their New Year's Eve party, and one of them turns up dead. They're all completely trapped, and the police can't get there, and the story of the book is actually in part you working out which one of them it is that's ended up dead, and in part obviously working out who did it, whether it was one of their own, I guess, because there are of course a few other people lurking around the edges. Now it's kind of a really classic style to a thriller. You know, I want to use the word formulaic, but that sounds a bit, a bit like I'm putting it down, and that's not what I mean. I think what I mean is, it's not really breaking the mold. It's sort of a tried and trusted structure. You kind of know what you're going to get, and it is a structure that does really work. We're taken through the perspectives of a few of the different characters, this group of friends. They met at Oxford University, and it's now, I don't know, a decade or so later, and they meet up every year. And on first glance, they're the very best of friends, but the cracks obviously start to show as we go through. And the plot of the novel really is driven by these characters psychoanalyzing each other, really. It's actually kind of not really an action-driven thriller plot. It's one where we see sort of in-depth flashbacks of what's gone before at university and a little bit through the following years, and also an awful lot of what they're thinking in their heads, which really give you the clues as to who might have been bumped off and who might have done it. This group of characters, though, unfortunately, are the most vile, dislikable, unsympathetic group of people you could possibly imagine. And generally, I quite like deplorable characters, but there's not really anything redeeming about any of them that you can get your teeth into. And they're quite sort of cliched characters, but without sort of being knowingly so, I guess, which sort of makes it, a little bit, I guess you get a little bit of irony from it, and it makes them a little bit more palatable. And when so much of the story is driven by seeing inside these characters, really you just wished, or I wished, that there was one that I could latch onto that would be, sympathetic in some way. And I don't necessarily even mean rooting for, I just mean have that interesting depth that keeps you turning the pages. I did keep turning the pages, and I did want to know what happens. Almost despite myself, I was sucked into the melodramas of these people. But I didn't necessarily enjoy it. I feel like I was more intrigued at what would happen, about, you know, how I could see that I was being lured into these traps and wanting to know sort of the mechanics of it, rather than desperately, urgently turning the pages, needing to know what happens. So my kind of feelings about it are mixed, because I kind of think, well, do you know what? If I didn't like any of the characters in any way, shape or form, and yet I still wanted to know what happens, that's an achievement, really, isn't it? But overall, I feel that it's a good novel, but it possibly, for me at least, you know, isn't a great one, and maybe not quite worth the hype. Don't like saying it, but probably just not for me. The next book that I read was The Last by Hanna Jameson, which actually I did enjoy more. It's not without faults, but overall it was a pretty good read. And this is absolute end of the world stuff, and it is a really sort of exciting setup for how the novel works. So it's primarily from the perspective, pretty much almost entirely from the perspective of Dr. John Keller, who is a history professor from Stanford University in the US, who went to Switzerland for a conference. Now, while he was over there, an atomic war started. First they took out Washington, whoever they might be, and then pretty much all the other major cities around the world. And most of the people who were staying at this hotel in the middle of a Swedish forest — we've got an isolated forest theme going on this week — fled. Most of them ran for their lives, and they left this group of about 20 people in this massive hotel with thousands and thousands of rooms, and they know that the world is basically crumbling around them. And then obviously internet cuts out, electricity is on its last legs, and they are sat in this hotel wondering what on earth it is they should do. Then the body of a small girl turns up. They don't know who she was, they don't know how she died, but she sure as eggs shouldn't be where they found her, in the state that they found her in. Dr. John Keller is basically consumed with finding out what happened to this girl. It's like when the world is crumbling around him, he's trying to find a purpose, and he wants to know what it is that happened to her, how she died, was she murdered, should he be concerned because he's in this hotel with like 20 other people and one of them quite possibly killed this girl. So whilst basically the hotel is trying to survive, the people are trying to find food, they're trying to work out, you know, whether they really can go anywhere without the radiation poison getting them, they at the same time are competing for resources and competing for power and sort of building their own little feral community and trying to work out what happened to this dead girl. It's told in a style where I guess it's almost like diary style. So Dr. Keller is recording this for history. He thinks, you know, if we really are the last people on earth, or the very, you know, some of the very end people, then I should keep this report for future generations, if they should exist, to find out what really happened. So it's a very matter-of-fact tone of voice that is used, but you get this sense that actually he might not be the most reliable of narrators as he's writing these things down. And actually that was a bit I really, really liked, sort of trying to look beyond the voice as it was presented to us at these little drips of information and going, oh, is he telling us the truth? Is this really what happened? And if not, why isn't he telling us the truth? What is it that he isn't telling us? There are parts of this that are actually really genuinely creepy, but they're not necessarily where you would expect them to be. So the blood and the guts and the gore I didn't find shocking and I didn't find scary, because I guess I've seen stuff like that before. You know, I've seen people, you know, not in real life, you know, on the television, getting shot, and you know, I've seen the blood spatters up the wall, and I've seen CSI, and those things are sort of done. And also in sort of end of the world type of scenarios, you know, the deserted supermarket, walking down the aisles with your shotgun, you know, looking which way. Those things have kind of been done, but the real creepy moments sort of came in the quiet moments. So, you know, the guy who sleepwalks around the hotel at night, around this enormous old creaking hotel, that was really creepy. The little girl who has a glass eye that she pops out, things like that, you know, were the moments where I genuinely sort of felt the creepiness rather than the blood and the guts and the gore. The characters on the whole actually were really good as well. I liked sort of the range of people that we had in this hotel. I liked that each of them gave us something different and something that, you know, I felt really wasn't a cliche. I'm going to do a side note here actually now while I remember it. Because Professor Keller comes from Stanford in The Hunting. All the characters are Oxford graduates. And I've got to say, folks, novelists out there, I would be really happy if I never had to read another character who went to university at Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, Stanford. I mean, I know why it's done, because it, you know, when you're told that a character has been to certain types of universities, you know, actually you can cut out a lot of character building because your mind jumps to a certain place and you make certain assumptions, maybe that they're really smart, or, you know, that they've had a life of privilege and things like this that allow the author to dive quickly into plot. But I mean, goodness me, they've just been done so much, haven't they? Please, no more. People went to other universities. Sometimes really interesting things happened to people who didn't go to university at all. There you go. Slight side note, can't really remember where I was, but generally characters in this book, really good. I think I occasionally questioned whether the male voices were like super male. You know, there was a couple of times when I did kind of doubt it when they're discussing, you know, maybe women's reproductive rights if it came to repopulating the whole world with just the 20 of them. Things like that, I was just like, not really sure I buy it. But generally, I definitely did. So overall, this was a novel I really liked. Although the thing that just disappointed me ever so slightly, and it's such a hard thing to get right, and I feel mean criticizing it because some people probably will be like, that was perfect, but the ending, it just felt like it was a little bit anticlimactic. I just wanted a little bit more. There was a coincidence that I was just like, really? There were sort of threads that had been set up earlier, which I was sure were being set up for something, and then just were abandoned. And I just wanted a little bit more. I wasn't satisfied by the ending. But, you know, that's endings, isn't it? And some people, well, you can debate endings of books until the cows come home, really, don't you? So you can take it or leave it, whether you think that that is a fair criticism or not. But that's basically it. The Hunting Party and The Last. Two new thrillers. One was great. One was just not for me, unfortunately. But yeah, do tell me if you fancy reading any of them. Do tell me if you are reading something else great at the moment. Any good thrillers recently? I would really love to know. In the meantime, do please check out bookaxe.com and the apps. They're completely free, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.